Good morning. If everybody would take their seats, we'll start our service.
Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Carolyn Churchill. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am your worship associate this morning. Welcome to all who are here in this sanctuary and all who are joining us online. And welcome to Patty Fritcher, who will be leading our service this morning. Together, we claim and celebrate the promise of our UU faith, that all of who we are is welcome in this co-created sacred space. Our theme for the month of April is joy. Hear these words from Reverend Gretchen Haley. Come in, all who long to know how to love this world, how to keep eyes open and hands unclenched, arms wide, breathing deeply in and out. This is a time to practice because there is still so much good and beauty and joy, but it can be hard to keep telling this tale with all this news and the wind and the rain and the trembling earth? Who wants to love this life anyway? Come in, all who teeter on the edge of cynicism, brokenhearted and trying still to remember laughter and kindness, and the chance to be alive in these days when so much is at stake. In this place, we remind each other why we persist, giving each other courage to take this path that is not always easy, to keep practicing this love. That will not let us go, and still calls us on. Come, let us worship together.
I would like to invite Ruby forward to light our chalice. Ruby is a first-time chalice lighter, so we would like to welcome her warmly. Our chalice lighting words this morning are by the Reverend Dr. Julia Corbett Haymeyer. We light this chalice in celebration of joy, the flickering flame of a candle, a flame that shimmers, that dances, that cheers, the flame that heartens and encourages us in hard times, the welcoming flame of this community. And so I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as you are able and join in singing our opening hymn, number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Over and around us lies, source of all to thee we raise, this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking scent to sound and sight, source of all to thee we raise, this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, for the
And now it's time for the message for all ages. So if all the children and those young in heart can come on forward. They're slowly moving up. So the book that I'm going to read to you this morning is called Freedom Summer, and this is about the summer when in 1963 or 4, I think it was 63, that the law changed so that it was no longer legal for black people and white people to be separated. So if you remember, some of you know that black people used to have their water fountain, and they used to have to go to a separate bathroom than white people, and they had to sit in a different part of the bus and trains and different part of the restaurant. And the law changed in that year. And they also spent that whole summer getting black people registered to vote. So it was probably 63 then, getting people registered to vote, because that's really important in order for the laws to reflect the people, right? So, but the important thing about this book, because the theme this month is joy, and so it was a great joy not only that that law changed so that black people and white people could be together in places, but in this story there's a boy, two boys, and they're best friends, and one is black and one is white, and it didn't matter to them that one was black and one was white. They've been best friends forever, and things are changing, so there's some things that they had to go through that were kind of hard for them that summer. But they had a lot of resilience, and they had a lot of fun together, and it didn't matter, and they just cared about each other and loved each other no matter what color their skin was. So this is Freedom Summer by Deborah Wiles. John Henry Waddle is my best friend. His mama works for my mama. Her name is Annie Mae. Every morning at 8 o'clock, Annie Mae steps off the county bus and walks up the long hill to my house. If it's summer, John Henry is stepping it right beside her. We like to help Annie Mae. We shell butter beans, we sweep the front porch, we let the cats in, and then chase the cats out of the house until Annie Mae says, "Shoo, enough of you two, go play." We shoot marbles in the dirt until we're too hot to be alive. Then we yell, "Last one is a rotten egg," and run straight to Fiddler's Creek. John Henry swims better than anyone I know. He crawls like a catfish, blows bubbles like a swamp monster, but he doesn't swim in the town pool with me. He's not allowed. So we dam the creek with rocks and sticks to make a swimming spot, then holler and jump in, wearing only our skin. John Henry's skin is the color of browned butter. He smells like pine needles after a good rain. My skin is the color of the pale moths that dance around the porch light at night. John Henry says, I smell like a just washed sock. This means war, I shout. We churn that water into a white hurricane and laugh until our sides hurt. Then we float on our backs and spout like whales. I'm going to be a fireman when I grow up, I say. Me too, says John Henry. I have 2 nickels for ice pops, so we put on our clothes and walk to town. John Henry doesn't come with me through the front door of Mr. Mason's general store. He's not allowed. How you doing, young Joe? Asks Mr. Mason, and he winks and says, You gonna eat all those by yourself? My heart does a quick beat. I've got one for a friend, I say, and scoot out the door. Yes, sir, it's mighty hot out there, Mr. Mason calls after me. I love ice pops, says Henry. Me too, I say. Annie Mae makes dinner for my family every night. She creams the corn and rolls the biscuits. Daddy stirs his iced tea and says, The town pool opens tomorrow to everybody under the sun, no matter what the color. That's the new law, Mama tells me. She helps my plate with peas and says it's the way it's going to be now, everybody together. Lunch counters, restrooms, drinking fountains too. I wiggle in my chair like a doodle bug. I gotta be excused, I shout, and I run into the kitchen to tell John Henry. I'm gonna swim in the town pool, he hollers. Is it deep? Real deep, I tell him, and the water's so clear you can jump to the bottom and open your eyes and still see. Let's be the first ones there, says John Henry. I'll bring my good luck nickel, and we can dive for it. Next morning, as soon as the sun peeks into the sky, here comes my best friend, John Henry Waddle. Running to meet me. Let's go, he yells. I've got my nickel. And I run right with them all the way to the town pool. We race each other over the last hill, and we stop. County dump trucks are there. They grind and back up to the empty pool. Workers rake steaming asphalt into the hole where sparkling clean water used to be. One of them is John Henry's big brother, Will Rogers. We start to call to him, "What happened?" But he sees us first and points back on down the road. It means, get on home. But our feet feel stuck. We don't budge, so we hunker in the tall weeds and watch all morning until the pool is filled with hot, spongy tar. Smoky steam rises in the air. Workers tie planks to their shoes and stomp on the blacktop to make it smooth. Will Rogers heaves his shovel into the back of an empty truck and climbs up with the other workers. His face is like a storm cloud, and I know this job has made him angry. "Let's go," a boss man shouts, and the truck's rumbles slam down the road. It's so quiet now. We can hear the breeze whisper through the grass. We sit on the diving board and stare at the tops of the silver ladders sticking up from the tar. My heart beats hard in my chest. John Henry's voice shakes. "White folks don't want colored folks in their pool." "You're wrong, John Henry," I say, but I know he's right. "Let's go back to Fiddler's Creek," I say. I didn't want to swim in this old pool anyway. John Henry's eyes fill up with angry tears. "I did," he says. "I wanted to swim in this pool. I wanted to do everything you can do." I don't know what to say, but as we walk back to town, my heart starts to pop with new ideas. I want to go to the dairy dip with John Henry, sit down and share root beer floats. I want to go to the picture show, buy popcorn, and watch the movie together. I want to see this town with John Henry's eyes. We stop in front of Mr. Mason's store. I jam my hands in my pockets while my mind searches for words to put with my new ideas. My fingers close around 2 nickels. "Want to get an ice pop?" John Henry wipes his eyes and takes a breath. I want to pick it out myself. I swallow hard and my heart says yes. "Let's do that," I say. I give John Henry one of my nickels. He shakes his head. "I got my own." We look at each other. Then we walk into the front door together. So even though things were hard, they still had joy because they were great friends, and they were going to be able to do some wonderful things together as friends, weren't they? So now it's time for the children's blessing. Okay, ready? We are blessed. We are blessed by being here. We are blessed by being here together.
Part of being in community is sharing our lives with one another. When we gather, we bring with us the joys and the sorrows that are on our hearts. And being here reminds us that we do not hold them alone. If you have a joy or sorrow that you would like to speak out loud at the mic, you are invited to come forward first. When spoken joys and sorrows are complete, those who wish to light a candle then may come forward. Just a reminder that our service is streamed online, so sharing at the mic can be heard by the larger community beyond these walls. You want?
I'm Nancy Hennessy. I guess this is a joy and a sorrow. I'm speaking on behalf of Jan Fredrickson, who you know comes to church with me when she can. And so she called me yesterday to tell me that she could not. And when I called her this morning to find out why, thinking, was she well? She is apparently as well as she has been, which is not good. And she reserves each ounce of energy that she has to deal with the next procedure that she has to go through, day that she has ahead. And so that's why she's not here. So she wants to say thanks. She wanted me to speak to you and say thank you for all of those cards that you send. She loves it, and she appreciates the love that this church has for her.
I'm Mary Graham, and yesterday I had to go to a funeral for a friend that I grew up with in high school, closer to my sister, whose husband was on a bike ride in New Zealand and keeled over and died at 59. So Nancy and my sister Bridget now are in the same club of losing their husbands, and it's really hard. But there's lots of support. It was Bob Margis who was the director of the library. Nancy was like, I knew there'd be a lot of people, but there were a lot of people, so that was comforting to her. But we're just holding them in our hearts right now.
Good morning, Mary Beth Selke. I have a joy that two of my honorary grandchildren are in the play at Horlick High School, Greece, and it's phenomenal. There weren't many people out there. It's on today at 2 and next weekend. Go see it. It'll really make your day.
Good morning, I'm Lisa Scapatat. Two quick joys. One is the song we sang this morning was a very popular song when I was growing up. That was really delightful to sing that again. And yesterday, the Monument Square was filled with people at a protest. It was nationwide, it was powerful, it was exciting. Our own Bill Garvey spoke at length, and the energy just stayed with us as people stayed on the streets and horns were honking in support, so take heart.
I have another joy I forgot to mention. Thank you to Diane Lang and everyone who did that wonderful dinner, the UU Gym dinner Friday night at Infusino. So thank you again, Diane, and the group.
Good morning, I'm Jerry Patak. About a month ago, I was involved in a traffic accident that caused me to be bruised from top to bottom, and my car was totaled. That's the bad news. The good news and the joy is that I've almost recovered. I have a new car, and I'd like to thank you all the good shepherds and others who sent cards and were thoughtful. I appreciate your kindness and your thoughtfulness. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Hi. Good morning. My name is Jay. There's a lot of really awful things going on, especially with between the U.S. and China. And I speak a decent amount of Chinese, and I have some friends who live there. And it's kind of nice that despite everything, that everyday people can still be friends with each other, and I practice my Chinese with them, and they practice their English with me, and it's nice to be able to learn from each other about each other's cultures, despite everything the governments are doing to each other.
Good morning, I'm Maria Scott. Bunch of Scotts and Pataks up here today. I was also at that rally, and there had to have been a large percentage of those 500 or so people that were Unitarians.
Creda, they, them. I had lots of joy spending 2 Sundays with the UU congregation in Las Vegas. Made lots of friends and had a wonderful time.
We will light one more candle for the joys and sorrows that are on the hearts of our beloveds online. Please join me now in singing There Is a Love. The words are in your order of service.
Good morning. My name's Patty Fitchett. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the director of community worship down at your sibling congregation, Bradford Community Church, UU, down in Kenosha, and I'm thrilled to be with you this morning. Our first reading this morning is The Spirituality of Silliness by Tom Roschert. He says, before the guests arrived at the wake, my brothers and I stood in front of the open casket of our brother Matt, who had just died of AIDS at the age of 23. We looked on for a time in silence. Then a brother on my left said, why do his hands look all screwed up? And a brother on my right leaned in and whispered, because he's dead. We exploded in laughter. That moment of emotional blasphemy came at a time in my life when I was way too serious in my pursuit of spiritual gains and deeply in need of the balancing power of laughter. I remember back then getting a gift of a small statue of a fat-bellied Buddha laughing joyfully with his arms stretched over his head. I hated that Buddha. I wanted a perfectly postured, cross-legged, unsmiling Buddha with great abs. It took me more than 30 years to lighten up. So what's the best way to climb out of a dark place when you're not sure you really want to? A lot of approaches are possible. Deep breathing, reciting a sacred word, turning to a favorite thought, doing a positive activity. But I found that for the most part, for me, the most effective approach for switching off the negative and turning on the positive is laughter. For a time, I wondered if laughter wasn't just an act of denial, but grief counselor Ted Wyard, who lost his little brother in a boating accident, and then his young wife to cancer, and then his 2 little girls in a car accident, told me that laughter isn't an effort to deny grief or bypass loss. Laughter recognizes the loss, he said, but it expands the event to bring in hope to help the healing. So I began looking for ways to make myself laugh. I would find myself hating a situation, and I'd whisper, "I am loving this." And the statement alone would make me laugh. Sometimes I'd be in a black mood and say to myself, that worked too. Other times I would clap. A friend of mine said, "Clap?" Yes, I said, "Clap my hands together like a small child." Her response told me that I'd crossed the border from funny to silly. A few days later, I wrote to a friend, "I think one of the secrets is laughter. And a good way to get to laughter is being silly. And being silly is hard for people who are too attached to their dignity, like me. But wow, it is helpful." She wrote back, "Yes, that's so novel. The danger of evil is that it consumes us and makes us think that laughter, silliness, and love are irresponsible. Let's turn that thinking on its head." That's when I began to name the thing and believe in the spiritual power of silliness. Now, my approach for replacing the negative with the positive is to make myself laugh by being silly. The good news is that I was born to be silly, and so were you. Now, there are little pockets of our lives when it's safe to be silly. When our dog Walter died at age 4, we didn't just miss him, we missed the way we were when we were with him. So after a pause, we adopted Chester and restored silliness to our home. Little kids, too, give us permission to be silly. When I was taking care of children, I was allowed to act like a child. The other day, I was wedged in a crowded elevator when a 3-year-old girl gave us an inspiring performance of the Itsy Bitsy Spider. My mood lifted like a rocket, and I got off the elevator thinking, "Oh my God, I should have done it with her. How did I miss that?" Later in the day, when I was all alone in my basement with no one else around, I sang the Itsy Bitsy Spider all by myself, including the little hand gestures. Which brings me to the biggest barrier of all to silliness, embarrassment. I try to find the border where embarrassment begins and then cross it. I look for ways to embarrass myself, but only in front of myself. If there's a theme in my practice, it's imitating children or myself as a child, or just doing make-believe. I've jumped up and down, clapped my hands, and shouted, "Cookies, cookies, hooray for cookies!" I've paraded around my basement to John Philip Sousa marches. I've raised my right hand, placed my left hand on the Bible, and recited the oath of office for the President of the United States. It's only 35 words. It's wise to be ready. These are unpredictable times. Now, none of this changes the fact that being silly can feel weird and undignified, and I've tried to argue my way out of it. How can I be silly when people are suffering. The question's easier to answer than it sounds. Love is the only force that can heal the world. Laughter is a gateway to love, and silliness is the shortcut to laughter. Life is too serious for us not to be silly. And so everyone now, with me please, the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. Thank you very much. All right. And now please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing hymn number 100. I've got Peace Like a River. Alejandro, I think we're just going to do the first 4 verses, verses 1 through 4. Here we go. There are many ways that we give to the life of our church, and our monetary offering is just one of those ways. Each month, we partner with a local organization that is doing good work in our community, and we share the money we gather. Our partner for the month of April is Habitat for Humanity, and here to talk about the program is Rex Hamilton.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. I've been attending church my entire life, 52 years, and that's the first time I've ever sang the Itsy Bitsy Spider in an adult service. So there's a first for everything, right? That was good. Before I get into who we are as an organization in our wonderful city, I do want to recognize 2 friends and longtime supporters of Racine Habitat for Humanity, and that's Jeff and Mary Ciota. They have been longtime great supporters. Jeff, part of our year-round construction team for, I think, 14 years now. So it's always good to see them outside of the build sites there. Yes. I will share, I was told I had 3 minutes, so I'll make this real quick. I will share 2 numbers with you. I'll start with the number 26. That is the percentage of when you would take all the households in Racine County, the owner-occupied households, that is the percentage of households that are owned by our black brothers and sisters. 26. There's a massive disparity, especially here in the city of Racine, amongst people of color and white households. And for many years now, since 1988, Racine Habitat has worked diligently to try and shrink that gap. And I'm proud to say that this summer, we will have completed and sold our 120th home since 1988, serving mostly Black and Hispanic families here in Racine with affordable home ownership. So for those that may not know, Habitat does not build and give homes away. We sell our homes at an affordable cost, which empowers low-income families to build wealth and stability and self-reliance for their future and the future of their children. The other fact I'll share with you, and this is also a very glaring fact that a lot of people are not aware of here in Racine, is I'll share the number 25, and that's the percent of current renters in Racine who are now paying 50% or more of their monthly income on housing. And that is getting worse. And that's not just a Racine problem, that is an American problem. That is happening throughout America. I moved here to Racine 7 years ago from the city of Seattle. And people think it's expensive here, go take a trip to Seattle. So it is getting harder. It is getting harder. And I wish I could say that Habitat for Humanity around the country are quickly solving the problem, but we're not, because the housing issues are getting so bad. But Habitat here and around the country, around the world really, is doing an amazing work. Our mission is just simple. It's to show the love of God by bringing people together to build homes, communities, and hope. And we do that through our corporate partners, volunteers, private donors, and we do that especially here in Racine through our faith partners. So thank you so much for being an ongoing support. Thank you for having a heart for people and a heart for social justice in our community, because it matters, and you are making a difference. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Black Americans outnumbered white Americans among the 29,500 people who lived in Selma, Alabama in the 1960s, but the city's voting rolls were 99% white. So in 1963, Black organizers in the Dallas County Voters League launched a drive to get the Black voters in Selma registered. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, a prominent civil rights organization, joined them. In 1964, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act, but the measure did not adequately address the problem of voter suppression. In Selma, a judge had stopped the voter registration protests by issuing an injunction prohibiting public gatherings of more than 2 people. To call attention to the crisis in her city, Amelia Boynton, a member of the Dallas County Voters League, acting with a group of local activists, traveled to Birmingham to invite Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. to the city. King had become a household name after delivering his "I Have a Dream" speech at the 1963 March on Washington, and his presence would bring national attention to Selma's struggle. King and other prominent members of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference arrived in January to push the voter registration drive. For 7 weeks, Black residents tried to register to vote. County Sheriff James Clark arrested almost 2,000 of them on a variety of charges, including contempt of court and parading without a permit. A federal court ordered Clark not to interfere with orderly registration, so he forced Black applicants to stand in line for hours before taking a literacy test. Not a single person passed. Then on February 18th, white police officers, including local police, sheriff's deputies, and Alabama state troopers, beat and shot an unarmed 26-year-old, Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was marching for voting rights at a demonstration in his hometown of Marion, Alabama, about 25 miles northwest of Selma. Jackson had run into a restaurant for shelter along with his mother when the police started rioting, but they chased him and shot him in the restaurant's kitchen. He died 8 days later on February 26th. The leaders of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Selma decided to diffuse the community's anger by planning a long march, 54 miles from Selma to the state capitol at Montgomery, to draw attention to the murder and voter suppression. Expecting violence, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee voted not to participate, but its chair, John Lewis, asked their permission to go along on his own. They agreed. On March 7th, 1965, 60 years ago last month, the marchers set out. As they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named for a Confederate brigadier general, Grand Dragon of the Alabama Ku Klux Klan, and U.S. Senator who stood against Black rights, state troopers and other law enforcement officers met the unarmed marchers with billy clubs, bullwhips, and tear gas. They fractured John Lewis's skull and beat Amelia Boynton unconscious. A newspaper photograph of the 54-year-old Boynton, seemingly dead in the arms of another marcher, illustrated the depravity of those determined to stop Black voting. Images of Bloody Sunday on the national news mesmerized the nation, and supporters began to converge on Selma. King, who had been in Atlanta when the marchers first set off, returned to the fray. 2 days later, the marchers set out again. Once again, the troopers and police met them at the end of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but this time, King led the marchers in prayer and then took them back to Selma. That night, a white mob beat to death a Unitarian Universalist minister, James Reeb, who had come from Massachusetts to join the marchers. On March 15th, President Lyndon B. Johnson addressed a nationally televised joint session of Congress to ask for the passage of a National Voting Rights Act. Their cause must be our cause too, he said. All of us must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice, and we shall overcome. 2 days later, he submitted to Congress proposed voting rights legislation. The marchers remained determined to complete their trip to Montgomery, but Alabama's Governor George Wallace refused to protect them. So President Johnson stepped in. When the marchers set off for a third time on March 21st, 1,900 members of the nationalized Alabama National Guard, FBI agents, and federal marshals protected them. Covering about 10 miles a day, they camped in the yards of well-wishers until they arrived at the Alabama State Capitol on March 25th. Their ranks had grown as they walked until they numbered about 25,000 people. On the steps of the Capitol, speaking under a Confederate flag, Dr. King said, "The end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience, and that day will not be a day of the white man, not of the black man. That day will be a day of man as man." That night, Viola Liuso, a 39-year-old mother of 5 who had arrived from the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Detroit to help after Bloody Sunday, was murdered by 4 Ku Klux Klan members who tailed her as she ferried demonstrators out of the city. Until he died in 2020, John Lewis bore the scars of March 7th, 1965, Bloody Sunday. So how did they find joy and humor in hard times? I decided to look and see what I could find. Coretta Scott King describes her husband as playful as a 6-year-old. Now, I've been married, and I describe that in my mind as, "Oh, Martin, grow up." She says he could tell jokes about himself and keep you laughing for hours. He was the comedian of the civil rights movement, said the Reverend Lewis Baldwin, a Martin Luther King Jr. historian. King even tried a brief stint of stand-up comedy after graduating from college. His career as a funny man was ultimately short-lived, but he was known to crack jokes with pals behind the scenes. On a Tonight Show appearance in 1968, isn't that odd to think of Martin Luther King Jr. on the panel with Johnny Carson, Bob Euchre's sitting next to him, and Ed McMahon's down the couch. But he was on the Tonight Show in 1968, and he says, "I flew out of Washington this afternoon, and as soon as we boarded, they notified us that the plane had mechanical difficulties, and that kept us on the ground for an hour. Finally, we took off, And whenever I land after mechanical difficulties, I'm always very happy. I don't want to give you the impression that as a Baptist preacher, I don't have faith I don't want to give you the impression that as a Baptist preacher, I don't have faith in God in the air. It's just that I've had more experience with him on the ground. Andrew Young, who went on to become the mayor of Atlanta, a member of the House of Representatives, and ambassador to the United Nations, reminisced about Martin Luther King Jr. What he recalls most is not the civil rights marches that the two men led in the 60s, or the impact that they had on American history. It's not even King's fabled "I Have a Dream" speech. What I remember most vividly about Martin, Young says, is his sense of humor. He was an incredible, fun-loving, happy young man. Young's most vivid memory is of a motel room pillow fight. Young recalls that the horseplay began after King admonished him for not keeping him informed on developments in a Memphis civil rights federal courtroom challenge in which Young had testified. And then very playfully, he threw a pillow at me, remembers Young. And he said, "Don't leave me here in the dark all day long without knowing anything. You need to keep me informed." And so a couple of members of King's entourage threw pillows at me, and I threw the pillows back. And the next thing I know, we were in a full-blown pillow fight like a bunch of kids, with me getting the worst of it because everybody was throwing pillows at me. The pillow fight was broken up a few minutes later, shortly before 6 p.m., by a reminder that King and his group were expected at a local preacher's house for dinner. Just 2 minutes later, a deadly shot struck down Dr. King at the age of 39. So you got to take your silly while you can get it, because you never know. Now, I've told theater stories here before, and many of you know that I'm a longtime volunteer with the Over Our Head Players, who have their home not too many feet from here. And the first time that I was able to volunteer with them was at a particularly traumatic time in my family's life. One of our children had been particularly ill, and I hadn't been able to do any theater for many, many years, and the chance came to work with the Over Our Head Players, and they're a particularly goofy group of people, and it was a very small role in, it was one of those shows where it was all like little tiny plays, so you didn't have very many rehearsals where everybody had to show up. You could rehearse your little tiny play, and we didn't all have to be at rehearsals until the final week. And the little play that I was in was one of those goofy things. It was called Variations on the Death of Trotsky. And my co-star had a wig with apparently Ivan Trotsky died with a mountain climber's axe in his head. And there's different stories about how that happened. So that's this little play, is different versions of how it would happen, and I played his wife. So it had one of those little hotel bells. So I would say, "Oh, Ivan, it appears you have a mountain climber's axe in your head," and he would say, "I don't think so," and the bell would ring, ding, he would fall down. And then the next time then the lights would come up, and he would say, "I believe I have a little headache," and I would say, "I think it's because of the mountain climber's axe in your head," ding, but it was the first, and so it was at a particularly dark time in my life, and the fact that I was able to connect with something so silly was such a gift. And we have a saying over at the Over Our Head Players that we say to each other backstage often, is there anyone in town having more fun than we are tonight? Oh my gosh. And it's not just the joy in the doing of it. Also, that first show, I had some friends who were coming to see the show, and my friend's husband was a state trooper, and he had been called to the scene of an accident where a car had gone under a semi-trailer, and it was particularly gruesome. And she called and she said, "Oh, Doug had to go to this accident. Don't know if we're going to make it to the show." And I said, totally understandable. Well, he came, and of course it was just what he needed, because you can't unsee what you saw, and you can't unlive what you lived. But just like Martin Luther King's pillow fight, you can't erase the joy in your life to prepare for the tragedy. So you got to make room for the times when you look around at your friends and say, is there anybody in town having more fun than us tonight? So I found a couple of quotes that I really liked. And the world is heavy now. And sometimes it's hard to pull yourself up out of the news and find the hope and the although marches and days like yesterday were very helpful. That was very nice. We had a very good day in Kenosha also. So this first quote is by Maria Popova. She says, "In this world heavy with robust reasons for despair, joy is a stubborn courage we must not surrender, a fulcrum of personal power we must not yield to cynicism, blame, or any other costume of helplessness. And when the war within rages, as it does in every life, the practice of joy, the courage of joy, becomes our mightiest frontier of resistance." And lastly, joy provides a glimpse of a better future that keeps us motivated to work toward it. Hope is an elusive yet vital ingredient for activism. Essentially, hope is the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. Without it, without that belief, there's no point in fighting. Yet even the smallest kernel of it can move nations. And how do we nurture hope? One way is through joy in the present. It's one thing to be able to envision a better future, but it's another to have a momentary flash of it course through our bodies. Hope is a form of emotional vision that stokes our motivation. If we relinquish our joy, we not only lose a profound source of unity, strength, and resilience, we also lose the point of it all. And so we must risk delight, and we must know that to do so is not a distraction from resistance, but one of its greatest sources of power. And so please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing hymn number, in your blue hymnal, hymn number 1018, "Come and Go With Me." We'll extinguish our chalice. Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us in our supposed solitude, the signals buzz and hymn, sparkling through space to one another, connecting us invisibly but palpably. We are one, and from every window our light shines. And as we end our time together today in spiritual community, may we depart this sacred space, knowing that blessings shall follow us all the days of our lives if we live in and return to right relationships, if we extend grace and forgiveness to ourselves and others, if we behold mercy as a spiritual superpower, if we emanate the greater love that holds us close. May our lives radiate the blessings that we have been given. May kindness and compassion fall gently from us. May there be peace in the world, and may it begin with us. Amen.
We do announcements after the service rather than at the beginning to give the children more time in religious education with Leanne. If you need to reference the monthly Unifier email, there is a link in each Sunday's email that will take you to it. And the deadline for announcements, news, stories, and events for the May Unifier is April 23rd. Andrea Bumpers and Carl Hubbard are facilitating the UUA 2025 Common Read, Authentic Selves, Celebrating Trans and Non-Binary People and Their Families on the following Tuesdays in April, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th, from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Zoom. If you are interested in participating in this common read, please contact Roseanne Mason to get a copy of the book. April 13 is the next deadline for Raise Right orders. That's next Sunday. See me if you need a form. Andy McLean has donated his many bottles of wine to the 8th Principal Committee, so we are planning a wine and gourmet delights auction on Friday, April 18th from 6:30 to 9 p.m. at East Towers, where Andy used to live, with proceeds going to the 8th Principal Committee. In addition to the wine auction, we plan to hold a gourmet delights auction with those proceeds going to OBUUC. If you have any questions, please contact Roseanne Mason or Dina Lieberman. Please be sure to have OBUUC's current mailing address in your records. It is listed in today's email. As was announced by the board, we are locking the 7th Street doors at the start of the service. For those who arrive late, there will be a sign on the outside of the 7th Street and also the parking lot doors indicating a cell phone number to call or text so that the ushers know you are at the door to let you in. Please identify yourself on the call or text message and which door you are at. For more information and details about some of these announcements, along with others and community announcements, see your monthly and Sunday emails. Thank you to our volunteers today. Kathy Carson and Joe Cushing, our ushers. Our Zoom host, Anita Miller. And our coffee hour hosts, Jan Carter, Suzanne Landis, and Maria Scott. That's all for announcements today. Please join us for coffee hour. For those on YouTube, log into Zoom for your coffee hour. The link is in today's email.